Hey, my name is Drew. Welcome to Overlake Student Ministries. We are creating a safe place where every student is loved, known, heard, supported, and challenged.
Loved, known, heard, supported, and challenged.
Hey, I'm Will, and here at SM, we make sure that every student is loved, known, heard, supported, and challenged.
Hey everybody, how are you doing? Middle schoolers, high schoolers, so glad that you're with us tonight. My name's Connor.
I'm Jody.
And this is the wrap up of a series that we've been in the middle of called Vibes. Called Vibes, where we've been talking about not letting your emotions be the boss of you. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we are going to be wrapping things up tonight.
Yes, and also we want to take some time to celebrate our HSM and MSM retreat that happened. So go ahead and let us know, what was the highlight of your Saturday? What was your favorite part? Drop that in the chat. We want to celebrate.
Yes, it's such a fun time.
And then coming up next,
yes, we are going to have a story from one of your own. It's going to be very exciting. We've got a student story coming up, so be sure, as it's going to blow up the chat, give some noise to them.
Let's
Make
give them
them
some
know
love.
how much you love them. And enjoy this video, and we'll be right back in just a few moments.
I guess I'll start from the very beginning to explain it all. It started when I was just in a Discord server with him, and it was just a gaming server where we just talk about a certain game and just connect through that. But they have these vent servers, or not vent servers, but vent channels in the server. And what it does is you can go there and you can like vent about your feelings or tell what's going on, what's like, what you're struggling with in life recently. So this happened like many months back near the start of the year. It looks like it was in March or February. He contacted me, not necessarily me, but he contacted in the vent channel that he was not doing great with his school. He said he was really close to having to repeat the school year. And so he was feeling stressed and he didn't know what to do at that point. So I was one of the few people who got back to him and said like, bro, you can do this. Like you're able to do this and you can get through this. Just gotta like focus and stuff. But he contacted me in DMs, or he was asking me like, hey, how I'm close to like restarting a whole school year. And he was like, do you have any tips or anything to help? Because I really don't want to have to, do this. And I'm like, you can study, read over things multiple times, take notes, which is basically more studying. Later, this is where it kind of got to more serious levels. He contacts me and he says that he's having attacks, and what he means by that is like suicidal thoughts and that stuff. He asked me if I had any like advice because he trusted me because I'd helped him like a little bit before, so he wanted to see what I could give to him, even if it wasn't that much. So what I told him is I started off asking him if he was religious. He said he wasn't. So that kind of made it a little harder because normally I probably would have tried to think of something based on church, but I did my best to base it on what I've learned from church without like explicitly mentioning. And so I said, you gotta not only think about like yourself, but you gotta think about how it will affect the others around you, because it may really hurt them and those you love. He is like, thank you for the tips. I'll continue. I'll think about that. So I'm like, it's my job to make sure that you're loved, known, heard, and supported, because I'm going to give a shout out to the Big Five series, which really helped because I literally just applied what I've learned from that, because being known or loved, known, heard, and supported. So I'm like, but there's a fifth one, challenged, and I wasn't like sure how I could give that, so I was just saying the first four because I wasn't exactly sure how to incorporate that. But the next morning, I just wanted to check in with him. So when I got up earlier than I wanted to, I grabbed the computer and opened Discord to just see how he was doing. It was a bit before church started, and so I was just talking to him, just seeing how he was doing. And then my mom told me, like, why don't you just invite him to church? And I'm like, sure, why not? I mean, I know he's not religious, but I mean, I can try. The sermon this past Sunday of this recording, where we were talking about love in the Advent series, and I think it was perfect because what he needs right now is to hear about the love of God, and it's just, the message he needs to hear right now, and know that he's loved and that he belongs. Very coincidental, but also amazing that it happened to be that Sunday we were talking about love. And then I also invited him to the HSM Zoom meeting. He really enjoyed it. He was engaged. James can tell you that he was, he was talking along, like he didn't have his mic on, of course, or camera, but he was using the chat. He was getting involved, and so that's what was super cool. So I mean, I would say that if any of you guys are like struggling with these kinds of thoughts or emotions, I want you to think about the people around you and the people who love you, and the impact it would make on them, and just maybe reach out to a friend to talk or something. So yeah, just really try and think about that. Keep that in your mind.
Welcome to week 4, talking about vibes. My name is James. I'm the high school pastor on the team, and I've been really excited about this series, talking about how we can take control of our emotions rather than being controlled by them. We're going to be talking about how to live in freedom and all sorts of other goodness today. So before we get started, I'm going to ask you a question. So think on this. Maybe close your eyes. If you knew you could do something without ever getting caught and there would be no circumstances, what would you do? If you could just do anything, what would you do? The thing is, sometimes we would do things that we just would not do normally. And yeah, we can keep good control of our actions, but sometimes we have a really hard time keeping control of these emotions. Underneath all those actions, we wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I just want to break something really, really bad. No, we know someone else cares for those things or whatnot. And so we're probably grateful that there's no mind readers out here knowing exactly everything that we want to do. And we have the potential to think some wild thoughts. I actually am thinking about a time when I really liked this girl and I thought that she really liked me. And so one day, I stole her best friend's phone and I started reading the texts in it that featured my name. And there was nothing about how she liked me, and I was feeling sad, but I was also really flustered, so I put it back and I didn't do a good search. And the thing is, that was a moment where I was like, I have no consequences because no one's gonna know. But I felt really bad about it. And we're gonna talk about how I felt bad about it and how we deal with that. But the reality is, I had this emotion that was overcoming me, overtaking me. And I just was I just gotta do something. And truly our emotions just kind of spill out of us. They just kind of spill out of us, overflow, whatever we're feeling, we kind of just do sometimes. If I took this thing of Skittles, I couldn't pour water out of this mason jar. No, because truly there's just a bunch of Skittles in here. Sorry, Mike and Ike's, even better. And this thing is, there is something yummy inside, but we can't just choose what's gonna be in here. What's already in here is gonna come out. And this reminds me of a proverb that King Solomon in the Old Testament said. And this was the proverb. This is the thing that we have to think about. One of the things we might think about is, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This is from Proverbs 4. And what Solomon is saying is that what's going on inside of you is super important. Why? Because what comes out of you comes from inside your heart. And we can all watch our actions and monitor our behavior, but that might not be the real problem. Maybe something inside of us is the problem. Maybe it's something that's happening in our heart, because good or bad, whatever is inside of you is going to come out, even if it's delicious. And the thing is that we need to think about is that sometimes there's stuff inside of us that's not great. We don't feel like the stuff inside of us is great, and that stuff is controlling us and making us feel bad, and it makes us do things that we regret. And tonight, what we're going to be talking about is talking about guilt. Let's be clear. Nobody likes to feel guilty. So instead of doing something about it when we feel it, sometimes we just like stick it away. We don't really want to feel it anymore, so we just stuff it inside. And maybe we also say things to ourselves to make us not feel guilty, like, I wasn't the only one, or I was just going through a bad time, or it's not really my fault. So we don't think about it. We like blind ourselves to these moments of like, oh, we feel guilty. And we tell ourselves these stories to make guilt feel less powerful over us and make us not feel so bad. And we make excuses or pretend like these things aren't really a big deal. But when we think about it, we like feel guilty, and it creates a big debt, and it makes it like a debt and debtor relationship with other people. And in other words, it creates an I owe you in a relationship. Because when we've taken something from someone, we feel like we've hurt them, their reputation, their trust, their self-esteem. And we even say, I owe you an apology. But the thing is, often we don't see guilt as a debt to pay. We experience it as like a weight on our back. We carry it around, and it follows us from this place to that place. And carrying that weight throws us off balance. It explains why when we fix a relationship, it might feel like, oh my gosh, there's a weight lifted off my shoulders. I have my friend back. But that's not all. Guilt just doesn't stay with that one person that you feel guilty towards. Maybe if you ever do something similar, you start feeling guilty for all sorts of other things. Like we said something bad to our friend, and so now we feel bad about what we said to our stepmom, and it's like just this whole thing together. Like in my story, my friend's phone that I stole, I just felt guilty about that for years. Like, she didn't like me, there was no thing, like all of these other things. But like for years, I just felt bad that I stole this person's phone that trusted me. And the thing is, these emotions that are inside of us, these guilt that's inside of us, they're gonna come out, and they're gonna feel some type of way. They're gonna like feel maybe like anger or fear, or we're gonna be defensive, or like maybe we'll just feel guilty and sad for a long, long time. Often the thing is, if we don't own up to our guilt and admit that what we did wasn't okay, we won't actually ever get free of that thing. We'll feel judged, or we'll feel convicted, or that's a word, or condemned. And we feel like we can't undo anything. We can't untalk this way. We can't unlook through someone's texts. But the real truth about all of our guilt is that it's completely gone, and it does not have to be part of your story. You see, Jesus offers a different way, a way to no longer be controlled by your guilt, by your shame, by your anger, or by these things that just like kind of bubble up. And that's what we're going to talk about for these next few minutes. What is a way out of this guilt that we feel? There's something that the Apostle Paul said, and that's what we're going to go into, because Paul was a follower of Jesus, but he was not always a follower of Jesus. Paul was actually a really bad guy. He was known, before he took on the name Paul, he was known as Saul of Tarsus. And Saul literally spent his time hunting down people that followed Jesus and tortured them and imprisoned them and even killed them sometimes. He didn't just like let it happen, didn't just like see it happen. He made it happen. But then Paul's life totally changed, and he became a follower of Jesus. And instead of killing followers of Jesus, he made his life's goal one to encourage people that follow Jesus. But his past was still with him. Like, he still probably felt guilt for like maybe torturing a person that was now his friend, or something like that. And in Paul's story, we can learn something from it because he doesn't just run away from it. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't deny it. He actually says that that was something that happened in the past, but because of Jesus, it does not count anymore. It does not have to hold me down. It does not have to weigh me down. I don't owe anything. And therefore, he says this, therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because through Jesus Christ, the law of the Spirit who gives us life, we are free from sin and from death. That's in Romans 8. In other words, he says, because of Jesus, something new happened. We don't have to pretend that you didn't do anything wrong, but we also just get to have freedom in knowing that God has taken the weight of our sin. We don't have to hold on to that weight anymore. Paul says, what the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh. And that's only half the sentence, so we'll get to the end of it. But he says, all the law could do, all of the Jewish Old Testament law, all of the ways that we have as humans to like fix different things, they actually can't fix anything for us. They just show us the ways that we've messed up. But what can we find? How can we find freedom? It says, for the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh. God did by sending his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering. This is what it means. Jesus had no guilt. He never did anything wrong. He never felt guilty for what he did because he was perfect. And he died a death of a criminal person. And he did this because all of us who end up feeling guilty, we are able to put our guilt on Jesus. Jesus said that he was taking all of his guilt when he went to the cross. And we get to live guilt-free. Jesus took all of it. It's like he's saying, bring all of the bad stuff that you've ever done, all of your guilt, all of your grossness, and I'll own it. What you did was wrong, and it wasn't okay. You were guilty, but now you're not guilty anymore. Don't worry about it. And what Jesus did on the cross defines you. He took the guilt on himself, and now you are set free. That's the truth. You are now set free because of what Jesus did, that guilt. Maybe the Skittles inside of you, like they are now Mike and Ike's. Here's the thing. The way Paul writes is a bit confusing here. And if you're sitting here thinking, what does this even mean? I don't really understand what the law is and whatnot. It might sound confusing, but trust what Jesus is saying here. He's saying that because he took on all of our guilt, a few things happen. One, you are no longer allowed to condemn yourself or punish yourself. Guilt is not the boss of you. You belong to God. 2, give me a 2. Your guilt will remind you, but it will not define you. Meaning, what you did doesn't disappear, but it is not who you are anymore. 3, you do not get to condemn others for their mistakes. When you realize that Jesus has taken your guilt away, you can't make other people feel guilty for what they've done. 4, you are free to make things right with the person that you hurt. Without excuses or without lying to them, Jesus allows you to make it right with the person because you can ask for forgiveness from God and you can ask for forgiveness with the other person. You can trust and say, like, I'm not a terrible person for this thing that happened because God owns it. I did this thing, it was wrong, but can we become friends again? Can we heal up? This is the truth. Sometimes we feel guilty for something we've done and we actually can find freedom from it. In fact, if there is a reason you're here today, if that's the reason you're here today, what if someone is waiting on you to make the first move and make things right? What if it's that way forward for you to find your way out of the weight of guilt on your shoulders? Don't let fear or worry stop you from making one of your relationships good and right again. It's hard to humble ourselves and seek forgiveness, but it could be really freeing for you. And that's what Jesus is all about, your freedom. Maybe today is the day that you understand that because of Jesus, what he did for you, you're no longer condemned. Guilt is no longer in control. Guilt is not the vibe that's going to be calling the shots in your life. It is not shame or embarrassment or anything because Jesus, he took all of it. So as we head out of this series of vibes, we get to know that Jesus loves us. And because of that, he has freed us from our emotions controlling us. We get to think about what our emotions are, we get to process them, and right now we get to process our emotions with our people in our small group. So go forward from here. I love you guys. Jesus loves you, and he set you free from any guilt that you're feeling. Take care.